Okay, today is a double lesson. Chapter 10, Lesson 1, Chapter 10, Lesson 2. This is all about area. So you're going to learn how to find area of a few different shapes in this lesson. During today's lesson, what I want you to do is I want you to copy down the formulas. I want you to practice along with me, and then I'm going to give you a practice problem for each of these. So we're going to start out finding the area of a rectangle, which hopefully by this point in 6th grade, everyone already knows. So, you can write down in your notes that the area of, this is for a rectangle, is area is equal to base times height, or, it's the same thing, length times width, because base and height is the same thing as length is width in this particular case. So, most of the times you'll see length times width. But for a rectangle, it's the same as base times height. Oops. So if our rectangle is 5 by 7, those two letters being near each other, actually we'll use length times width. We use length times width because that's what most teachers use, that's what you'll see in the future, but it is basically the same thing. Anyways, when the two letters are near each other, what that means is that you multiply them, right? That means length times width. So all we're going to do is we're going to multiply one side times the other, length times width. So it's going to be 7 times 5. My answer is going to be 35. Pretty simple. Another straightforward one for rectangles would be, if let's do 3.5 and 8. All we would do is multiply 8 times 3.5. Simple as that. So you would do 8 and 3.5. Oops, I've got this upside down. And it's going to be, that'd be 40. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 4 is 28. So it'd be 28 would be the area. That's all there is. Pretty simple, right? I'll give you a challenge problem with that later for your way out. So here is the problem I want you to practice with this. I want you to practice finding the area of this rectangle. There you go. Pause. Solve. Okay. They will do this to you when you see this on a test. They're not just going to give you easy numbers. You're in 6th grade, most of you listening to this. So they're not going to give you 7 times 2 because that's too easy. So they're going to give you 7. The length, you could say, is 7. The width, 2.1. So we're going to do 7 times 2.1. So 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. 1 decimal. So our area would be 14.7. That's all there is to it. So the next shape we're going to do is parallelogram. Remember, a parallelogram has two sets of parallel sides. So, for example, those two sides are parallel, those two sides are parallel. So for a parallelogram, all we have to do is find base times height. So what it's going to give you on a test or in life is it's going to give you the base. The base is going to be this bottom line right there, or this top one. It really doesn't matter. But what it's going to do is it's going to give you the base. So, for example, that's 8. That would be the base, which also means that this side would be 8. So it doesn't really matter what you use. Now, the height is not this line right here. Height is that line right there. So if height was 5, all we would do is we would take this base times the height. So it would be 8 times 5, which of course would be 40. So the area of that one would be 40. Here's another example. What if the parallelogram is on its side like this? Which one would be the base? Well, the base would be here and also here because this is the height that we have. Now, it doesn't really matter because we're going to multiply them together anyways. 9 times 7, which would be 63. But what you need to know is you need to be able to look at a parallelogram like this. And what if they give you extra information? See, right now they're giving you two of the sides, which actually means you know four other sides. You have this side, which is 10, which means this side is 10. And this side is 11, which means this side is 11. Now, what do you multiply together? Well, the answer is base times height. How do you know which one base is? The base is the one that goes with the height. So this height comes straight up from the base up to the top. So that means 11 is the base and 5 is the height. So our area would be 55. Let's have you try one of those. Okay, if I give you this parallelogram, I want you to find the area. Pause and solve. Okay, notice I gave you a couple extras that you don't actually need. I know this is the base because our height goes off of the base. So the base is 17 and the height is 4. Now we don't need these other sides over here. They don't matter. We're going to use the height and the base. So we do 17 times 4. 4 times 7 would be 28. Carry the 2. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 2 is 68. So the area would be 68. That's all there is. So parallelogram is base times height. If we look back, rectangle is length times width. So close to the same thing there, not quite the same, but pretty easy to find. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do triangles. So triangle is 1/2 base times height. So the two things that you need to know are base and height. So for example, this one, the base is 8 and the height is 4. So what we would do is plug in 8 times 4 times 1/2. Now you can do this a couple different ways. You can do, remember when we have three numbers multiplied together, because those numbers are right together, so that means 1/2 times base times height. And remember, when we do that together, base times height, what we're going to do here, it doesn't matter what order we go in. So if I do, I'm going to plug in my base, which is 8, and my height, which is 4. So I have to do 8 times 1/2, or 1/2 times 8 times 4. Doesn't matter the order we do it in. I'm going to show you a couple tricks here. Well, first of all, I know 1/2 of something. 1/2 times something is just 1/2 of something. So if I did 1/2 times 8, that would be 4. So those two would be 4, and then I do 4 times 4, which is 16. Here's the easier thing. The easier thing I think to do, this is my opinion, is taking something times 1/2 is the same as taking something divided by 2. We learned that earlier in the year. So multiplying something times 1/2 and dividing it by 2 is the same thing.
So I didn't find the video.
So when you look at 8 and 4 there, one thing you could do is you could do 8 times 4 is 32. And then you can just divide it by 2. That also works, which makes it 16. Another thing, since it doesn't matter what order we do this in, is what we could do is just divide one of these two numbers by 2 right off the gate and then multiply. So what we could do is we could just turn this into 4 and then do 4 times 4 and it'd be 16. The important thing is you need to either take it times 1/2 or divide it by 2 somewhere along the process. So let's do a little example here. If you have, this is 9 and this is 10, base times height divided by 2, or 1/2 base height. So you can take, one way you could do it is 9 times 10 equals 90, and then 90 divided by 2, which is 45. Another way, I think that's easier, if one of these numbers is even here, you can just cut it in half, divide it by 2. Divide that by 2, it's 5. Then you just do 9 times 5 equals 45. As long as you multiply base times height and then divide it by 2 at some point, you're going to get the same answer. Okay, so let's try one on your own. Try this one right here. It is 12 times and then 4. Pause and solve. Okay, what you can do is take 4 times 12, which is 48, and then 48 divided by 2, and that's going to get you 24. Or you could just cut this in half, make it 6. 6 times 4 is 24. So That's triangles. Now I have a challenge problem for you to try for tomorrow. Or whenever you're doing math next, Mrs. Darby. If you know that the area, if you know that the perimeter of this rectangle is 24, find the area. Now, you can use your problem solving skills and figure out what you already know in order to figure out what the area is. That's your challenge problem for the next time you do math. We'll see ya.